Good evening, students. Welcome in next lecture of Math F242 Operation Research. Today we will start new chapter Inventory System. In last we have completed the queuing system or queuing theory, where we have studied the mathematical modeling of the congestion situation. So in this course you will study the so many application or mathematical modeling of the so many real time problem. So next problem is inventory problem. So audibility is okay.
Yes, sir.
So here in the inventory system, you have the idea what is the meaning of the inventory. Inventory means it is the storage of the stocks, storage of the item. So inventory management is one of the most important activity in any successful organization. Even at the home, we use the inventory. Means in the kitchen, in the home, whatever the item you are using, that we have to procure in advance. That we means we have to maintain the inventory, right, in advance. We have to procure the inventory in advance. So successful organization of a complex system involving inflow, where we have the inflow of the items, outflow of the items, and the storage of the items. So inflow, storage, and outflow of the physical goods. So means whatever the small things for where we require any physical goods, whether we have the biscuit, namkeen, coke, right, whatever the things, everything we have to manage, we have to procure, we have to use, right, we have to store. So how optimally we can do this process, that we will study in the inventory management. So we can call the required things as items, goods, product required for the demand. Means we can have any demand, right, for these items. So demand of the customers, and we know that customer is what most unpredictable in nature. In the queuing theory also I have told you that customer is most unpredictable in nature. Means customer is we have to manage the storage, so and raw material for the production system. So either we can have the demand from the customer, or we can have the demand of raw material for the production system. If we have some production system, manufacturing system, then we have assembly line, so we have to manage the raw material. Now items needed are procured through purchase or production. Means whatever the raw material you require, whatever the items you require, whatever the goods you require, whatever products you require, how you can manage, how you can procure that, procure that you can procure either by the purchase from the market. Means whatever the requirement, that you can purchase from the market directly, or you can produce. So when you produce, you can produce one by one. Means if we have the demand of the 50 items, but directly 50 items you cannot produce, you can produce one item, and you can reach up to the required quantity. So the procurement can be either the purchasing directly from the market, or you can produce from the in-house facility. So procurement you can complete through the two process, either the through the purchase or through the production. So from here you can judge that the procurement generates the inflow. Means with the purchase, with the production, the number of items increase. It generates the inflow. That meaning is the number of item increase. So procurement generates inflow into the system, and the demand and the uses, right? Outflow is created by filling the customer demand. Means if there is a demand, if there is a uses, then we are creating the outflow. So the difference between this inflow and this outflow, the difference between this inflow and the outflow will create the inventory. So here the difference between the rate of inflow and outflow generates the inventory, because we cannot predict how much demand we can have. So in advance we have to procure the required items, required products, required goods. So the difference between the demand and procured goods, procured item, that will create the inventory. Means with the demand, with the generated demand, the inventory will decrease. So that inventory we have to manage. So it is impossible or uneconomical to balance the inflow and outflow at each point of time. Means it is, you will agree with this, that whenever we have the rise of the demand, at that time we cannot procure. We have to procure in advance. Just at the point of the time when we have the demand, at that point we cannot procure. We have to procure in advance. Otherwise you cannot manage. Yeah, you cannot manage the system. So, and this demand is totally unpredictable. So it is totally impossible and uneconomical to balance the inflow and outflow at each point of the time. So here you can see that we have the with the random demand, here the inventory level is decreasing. Then at this point of time you have purchased the item, again you have increased your inventory. Then with the demand, the inventory level is decreasing. Then again you purchase from the market, and you can with the demand, with the random demand, here again the procurement will decrease. Then this cycle will continue. Means procurement and uses will continue. So how much item we should procure? Now that is the question. Because demand is unpredictable in nature, so how much item we should procure to fulfill the demand, that you cannot judge, so that we will study in this chapter. So here, if you say that we can procure the item more frequently. So when we procure the item more frequently, that will increase the cost of purchasing, right? That will increase the cost of purchasing. Why? Because for each time you have to go to market, there is a cost of the petrol. For each time you have to call someone, so you have to pay for the call. So each and every, when you are going for purchasing, it means at that time you are not in shop, in your shop, right? In your inventory storage space, you are in market. So that is the loss of the time. So it increase the cost of the purchase. And that includes some fixed cost. Means either you procure one item, 10 item, 100 items, minimal freight charge you have to wear. Minimal freight charge you have to wear. If someone is coming to your house to deliver something, so he will charge some minimum amount to deliver that item, whether it is one item or 10 item or the 100 item. Means after that, depending over the number of items, he can charge. But there is always some minimal charge, right? In that, how many items you are procuring, that is immaterial, but minimal charge you have to pay. So such type of the charge are known as the fixed cost or the setup cost. Fixed cost or setup cost that you have to bear each for each order, for each procurement. If you are not frequently ordering, if you are not frequently procuring, then there is no item in your inventory, there is a less item in your inventory, that decrease the sale. It means there is a loss of the sale. If you are unable to fulfill the demand, naturally there is a loss of the goodwill, there is a loss of the customer satisfaction. So that arises due to the shortage of the item, that arises due to the shortage of the item. And whatever the cost involved due to the shortage are termed as the shortage cost. Whatever the cost incurred through the due to the shortage of the item, when we are not able to fulfill the generated demand, then we call that as a shortage cost. Now what you can do, okay, again and again we will not order, we will not procure, means frequency of the procurement is less, but at that time we will procure the more quantity. So when you are procuring the large quantity, right? When you are procuring the large quantity, it means you are investing the more money. You are investing the more money. You are purchasing the item with large amount of. So here we have the cost of the storage. And when you have the large amount of the item, now your responsibility will increase to store carefully, right? You have to prevent that item from the means from the deterioration. You have to prepare, you have to store your items, your goods from the deterioration. By chance you have the business of the vegetable, so you have to maintain the cold storage. If you have the business of the cereal, then you have to manage from the rodent. So that type of the cost will increase. Means when we have more quantity in procurement, when we procure a large quantity, then we have to bear the cost of storage. Cost of storage, you have invested a big amount, then there is the loss of the interest on the money whatever you have invested. So that type of the cost we termed as a holding cost. Means we have to manage the setup cost, shortage cost, and holding cost in such a way that total cost must be minimum. Total cost must be minimum. Clear? Any doubt to understand what is the setup cost, shortage cost, and the holding cost? Because these costs now we will repeat again and again. So any doubt you have to ask anything in this? Anyone? So in this case, what you can do, if we have the order quantity, if we have the large order quantity, at that time the ordering cost will decrease. Ordering cost will decrease, right? But you have to bear the bigger storage cost, holding cost. So what we have to do, we have to make the balance between these costs. You have to make the balance between these costs. Means you have to determine what is the optimum order quantity, how much optimum quantity we should procure, so that total cost is minimum. Total cost is minimum. The cost involving shortage and the holding cost and the setup cost. So what you have studied till now. So here inflow, you know that you can maintain through the procurement, outflow by the sale or by filling the customer demand. So the difference between the inflow and outflow manage the inventory. Inventory is what? It is the storage or the difference between rate of inflow and the rate of outflow. It means the inventory system is nothing. It is the scientific analysis to study the interrelationship between inflow, storage, and outflow. Here we have the three process. So in the inventory system, we analyze statistically, scientifically, mathematically the interrelationship between inflow, storage, and the outflow, and to identify the economic control method for operating the system. Means how much we should procure, when we should procure, uh, right? What item we should procure, how how to store. All these comes under the optimal control method. So from this, in our mind, we have the two question. The study of inventory model is concerned with the two basic question. Means in the inventory management, always we have to answer these two questions. What are the questions? Here, so here, how much should be ordered each time? Means what is the economic or optimal order quantity? How much we should order and when should we reorder? When should we reorder? Means how, when we should procure how much items? When we should procure the how much item? That we have to answer according to the given constraint for the studied system. So in this chapter, we will answer these two questions. So objective is to minimize total cost. Total cost means the sum of setup cost, holding cost, and the ordering cost. Shortage cost, holding cost, right, and the shortage cost, setup cost. All type of the cost we have to manage, and their sum we have to minimize. So minimize total cost per unit time over the specified time period. So here now we will study in an inventory system what are the basic component. The basic component of an inventory system. We know what is the inventory system, what is the objective of the inventory system. Now, how we can do the mathematical modeling? So for the mathematical modeling purpose, we require the following basic component. So naturally, there must be the involvement of the cost, different type of the cost. So first element is the cost. Then we have the salvage value, salvage cost, demand. Naturally, with the demand only, there is the inflow or and difference in the inflow and the outflow, right? Then ordering cycle, review policy, lead time, stock replacement, time horizon, and number of items. So these basic component we will study one by one. What are these? Right? We will study all these things in detail. So first we have the cost. In the cost for the procurement of the item, for the procurement of the goods, for the procurement of the raw material. So procurement is made either through the purchase. Initially, I have told you procurement can be done by the two process. Either from the you can purchase from the market or you can produce in in-house facility. So procurement can be made through the purchase or the production. So this cost has the two component. So in the procurement cost, we have the two component. First one is setup cost. The setup cost is nothing. It is a fixed cost. Fixed cost for each procurement. Fixed cost related to fixed cost associated to each procurement. So it is the fixed cost incurred with the each order, each procurement, assumed to be independent of number of units ordered or procured. So this cost includes those costs which are independent of the number of items. How many items, how many, it is independent from the quantity of the procurement. So it includes which type of the cost? Comprises the cost of the processing and order. For example, you have to make the draft, demand draft. So minimum charge you have to bear. For example, the postage, you have to post something, so minimum postage charges you have to give. So placing an order, for example, of phone call cost, when you have to call someone, so how much item, how much money you have to invest. Minimum freight charges, whether you procure one item, 10 item or 100 item, minimal freight charges you have to bear. So these type of the charges are independent of the order quantity. For example, the cost of inspection in some business, for example in the beverage business, food business, right, FMC's business, we have to go through the inspection process. So whether you have to inspect for the one item, 10 item or 100 item, minimum inspection charges you have to bear. Inspection or the testing charges you have to bear. So in case of the production, the cost to initiate the fresh production run, means in some production run we require initial setup. So initial setup, bear the or incurred some minimum cost. With that setup, whether you produce 100 items or 1000 items or 10,000 items, but initial setup you have to bear. That initial setup cost is independent of the quantity produced. So this quantity, which is independent of the quantity produced or procured, we denote by the K, right? So K is nothing. K, we say that it is the setup cost. Setup cost, which is the independent of the quantity procured. It is the fixed cost. Thereafter, in procuring the items, we have to bear another kind of the cost, that is known as the purchase cost or the production cost. Means how much item you are procuring, how much item you are purchasing, how much item you are producing. So that cost depend over the number of items. If you are purchasing more items, you have to pay more cost. If you are purchasing less item, you have to pay the less. So it depend over the quantity, the proportional to quantity ordered or produced. Means this cost is directly proportional to procurement amount, how much items you are procuring. This includes the units and delivery cost, means how much item you are purchasing, and associated delivery cost. Associated means this delivery cost is independent of the minimal freight charge. Means minimal freight charge you have to bear. After that, depending over the quantity, again you have to bear the cost. So when the cost depend on the number of items, on the quantity, then that will come in the purchase or the production cost. If you assume that unit purchasing cost is C naught, so per unit procurement cost, denoted by the C naught, then total cost, then the total procurement cost will become, let Q quantity you are procuring. If Q quantity you are procuring means Q quantity you are purchasing or Q quantity you are producing, so total purchase cost or the production cost will become the C naught into Q. That will be the total purchasing or the production cost. So the procurement cost will become the, it is the setup cost, which is independent of the quantity, plus purchase cost, which depend over the quantity. So that will be the procurement cost. Anything you want to ask here? So this is the first kind of the cost, procurement cost. Anything you want to ask? Then after, second one is the holding cost. Means when you have procured the item, when you have procured the item, you have to store in your inventory. For the storage, you have to bear some cost. You have to maintain the space. You have to maintain the temperature. You have to maintain the losses due to the storage, right? You have to see the interest what over the money whatever you have invested for purchasing the cost for procuring the cost. So all these comes under the holding cost. So holding cost arise when you have to store the inventory. So the associated with holding the stock over the time means how much for how much time interval you have to store. So these this cost depend over that factor also. How much item you have to store, for how much time you have to store, right? For how much time you have to store, the holding cost depend over both factor. So this cost include the insurance or the safety of the inventory. Means you, for example, if you have the gold or silver business or any other commodity business, you have to insure your shop. So and shop as well as the item. So that come under the holding cost. Cost of capital invested in stocking the items. Means here we are talking for the interest over the money which we have spent for purchasing, for producing the item. The cost of storage, for example, if you have to maintain the cold storage, you have to maintain the temperature. Yes, in some business you have to continuously manage the means fan, light. So all these come under the cost of storage. Depreciation cost of the item stored. Means if we have the perishable item, so perishable item or deteriorating item, for example vegetable, fruit, sweets, then we have to bear the depreciation cost also. Means with the time the cost, uh, item value will decrease. So here we have the depreciation. So that depreciation come under the holding cost. Or you have to bear so many taxes, so sell tax, income tax, and other goods tax, and all these things. So that taxes you have to bear. So all these comes under the holding cost. Now this cost varies directly with the level of inventory. Means how much inventory we have, and the length of the time, how much for how much time you have to store. So assume that let C1 is the unit cost. Let C1 is the unit cost per item per unit time. Per item per unit time. So total holding cost will become C1 into whatever the inventory for the time period T naught. So that will be the total holding cost for the period T naught, for the item label, for the inventory label I naught. So that will be the holding cost. Now you know, with the time inventory will increase or decrease. If there is the outflow, the inventory will decrease. If there is the inflow, then inventory will increase. With the time, the inventory will increase or decrease depending over the process. It means the holding cost will also change with the time. So when we, for example, if you assume, um, if I'm saying that, if I'm saying that here we have the inventory level I naught, and you have to maintain the inventory level for the period T naught. So total inventory cost will come C1 I naught T naught. At the same time, I'm telling you the inventory level may increase, may decrease, may increase, right? May decrease, right? Anything can be happen depending over the. So here we have the T naught, T1, T2, T3, and here we have the inventory level I naught, I1, I2, I3, I4, I5, and I6 like this. It means what you have to do. What is the total cost? Total cost is the summation of IN, TN, right? And the unit holding cost. C1 is what? It is the holding cost per unit item per unit time. So for the complete period, you have to sum up the sum of this cost. So, but in actual, we haven't like this. So what we have the inventory level like the continuous function, like the continuous function. So in that case, instead of the summation, we have to say we have to integrate, right? It is the unit cost C1, and here we say inventory is nothing. It is a function of T, right? Inventory is nothing. It is a function of T. So IT dt for the lower time limit to upper time limit. So here the holding cost, depending over the system, which system you are studying, we can have holding cost of any type. On so so here we are talking for the this holding cost. So if you can say that if inventory level varies with the time denoted by the IT, which is inventory level at the time T, so the holding cost can be summation IT delta T into C1 if it is in the discrete for that some time interval, and otherwise it is the C1 integral A to B IT dt. So holding cost depending over the system we can have of any form. Now suppose the time period is 0 to B, means A is equal to, we are taking as A, right? Instead of the A to B, if you are talking for the 0 to B, and the inventory buildups at the constant rate, inventory buildup at the constant rate over this period with initial inventory 0, with initial inventory 0, and at the at the B, inventory level is the IMAX. Inventory level is IMAX. So when we say the inventory is built up with the constant rate, it means we are saying that rate of inventory, means di dt, di by dt. It is given to you as a constant. Let's say it is the A. So it can be written as di is equal to A dt. So if you integrate on both sides, so it will give you I is equal to AT plus B, right? AT plus B, where B is the arbitrary constant. Now it is given to you at t is equal to 0 initially. At t is equal to 0, inventory is 0, so it is the A 0 plus B, so this will implies the B is equal to 0. So I will become the A into T, and it is given to you IB is equal to IMAX. IB is equal to IMAX, and IV from here we have the AB. So AB is equal to Imax. AB is equal to Imax. Now, if the what is the holding cost? Holding cost, we know what is the holding cost. Holding cost is integral integral A to B C1 IT into dt. That is the holding cost. So C1 is constant, A is equal to 0, B is equal to B, and IT we have AT plus, right? AT plus AT we have computed. This we have computed. I is equal to, so IT is AT into dt. AT into dt where A is constant. So this will become AC1 and t square by 2 integral of the t dt. So t square by 2 0 to b. So that will become half a c1 b square. Half a c1 b square. And here we have seen a b. A into b is equal to Imax. So when here we put a into b is a Imax, so it is the C1 Imax into B. So that will be the holding cost. That is the holding cost when demand is constant. When means when the build up rate is constant, build up rate of the inventory is constant, then the holding cost will be like this. So in this way we compute the holding cost, right? So this is the holding cost. So here you can say when the holding cost for the time period 0 to b, when build up rate is constant, it is equal to half Imax into b into c1. Thereafter, after the procurement cost and the holding cost, we have another type of the cost known as the shortage cost or the penalty cost. Shortage cost means shortage cost means it is the cost incurred due to the absence of the item, right? When we haven't the item, when we haven't the sufficient item to fulfill the demand, then we have to bear the shortage or the penalty cost. So it is the cost incurred when demand occurs. There is a demand of the item, and the system is out of stock. System is out of stock means you are not able to fulfill the demand. Then at that moment we have to bear the this type of the cost, and it is known as the shortage cost. It includes the whole means it includes the cost of goodwill, loss of the sale, and all this type of the cost. So in case of the shortage, now we have the two cases occur in the case of the shortage. So generally to manage the shortage, what is your experience, what you do? Anyone? If you haven't the item to manage the demand, what you can do? Anyone, please? It is written on the screen also as a hint. Yes, try to procure as fast as possible. मीन्स हम क्या करते हैं कि पड़ोसी की दुकान से जाके आइटम लाके तुरंत उस समय दे देते हैं. सो इन दैट केस या हम मार्केट जाके तुरंत हम डिमांड फुलफिल कर देते हैं. तो उस केस में क्या हो सकता है? दैट कैन दैट कैन डिमांड द एक्स्ट्रा मनी, right? So here the excess of the demand over the available inventory is met by priority shipment. Means you have not to procure at that point of time, but to manage the demand, you are procuring from the neighbor shop, from by right, or by any other mean, right, through the priority shipment, through the priority shipment. So it means you are able to manage the current demand, means you have not recorded the demand, right? So here this involves some kind of the penalty, means sometimes you have to pay more, right, more money to the other shopkeeper. So that is the penalty associated to prior shipment. और क्या कह सकते हैं, भाई मेरे पास तो सामान नहीं, तुम्हें तो कहीं और से लेना तो ले लो, means you straightforwardly deny that I haven't the item, you can go elsewhere. So it is not met at all. So that is the loss of the revenue, means whatever the money you are getting by selling that product, you missed with that. That is the loss of the revenue. So in this case, in these two cases, you have not to maintain any record, right? You have not to maintain any record, means who is the customer. Either you have managed his demand or you have denied. That customer has gone somewhere else, but you have not to manage any record, right? So that type of the shortage come under the no backlogging, means you have not to maintain any log, any record for the of the customer, right, when you are in shortage. So that come under the no backlogging. Another way can be, any other way, generally you have seen in your locality. What is the another way? Shopkeeper note your name, right? Yes, accommodate in the next shipment. So when you accommodate in the next system, for that, when you are accommodating in the next system, for that you have to record, you have to maintain the log of that customer. You have to maintain the log of that customer. So that will come under the backlogging, means when the backlogging is allowed, then you can maintain this. The amount of unfilled demand is filling either at once or continuously. Backlogging of the unsatisfied demand or back order, so that come under the backlogging allowed, or you can say back order allowed. The amount of unfilled demand which is to be filled later time, means which you can manage after the means future shipment, so can be filled later time when the stocks are next available at the instant t, is called the back order at the time t, and if we denote it by the bt. So when you have the positive inventory, we say we have the positive inventory, right, and we denote it by the it holding. At that time you have to bear the holding cost. When you have the shortage means negative inventory means we have the demand but we are not able to fulfill. That we denote by the bt. That we denote whatever there we have na it when we have the positive demand. So when we have the negative inventory, so we say it is the bt, back order, right? It is the back order. So it is the bt. And if you assume, so the penalty cost may include, so shortage cost may include the loss of the customer goodwill, means when you are not able to fulfill the customer demand, naturally he will go somewhere else. And next time, you can observe this, so next time that customer will go in that other shop only. He will not go means if it is the repeated one, you are continuously denying. So naturally there is a loss of the goodwill. Subsequent reluctance of the customer to do business. So you can observe that when we are not able to fulfill the demand of the customer, that customer visit next time in the other shop only. So there is a loss of the customer. The cost of the delayed revenue. So whatever the revenue you are getting when you have the item at the current time, so whatever the revenue you can manage at the current time, that you will get right at the delay time. So cost of the delayed revenue, concession given to the customer. So to avoid the reluctance of the customer, what we offer, that okay, I will give you some concession, but next time please come to us. So sometimes to attract the customer, we have to maintain the concession. Cost of the extra record keeping. So when we have to log the customer's identity, customer demand, right? So we have to manage, we have to incur some extra cost for maintaining this. So the cost of the extra record keeping. So here, so all the penalty cost is proportional to the shortage quantity. Means the shortage cost depend how much shortages you have, how much back demands you have. So it depend over the shortage quantity. And if the back ordering is allowed, the shortage cost is proportional to the quantity back order and the time and the length of the back order. It means uh, if you see the shortage cost will become the period for which we have the shortages. Let's say C2 is the unit shortage cost for unit item for the unit period, and then we have the BT, right, shortage amount, and then we have the DT. Means in this case we have the shortage like this. Means we have the uh, shortage of the B item for the T period, for the T period. So when we have the shortage, so we have the shortage of this. So for the period, right? Let's say it is the BT function, right? Here we have to maintain the shortage for the period A to B. So in this way, we can compute the shortage cost. So here it is written, the shortage cost will be the C2 integral of A to B BT dt. Suppose that back order build up at the constant rate D, because with the demand only we have the shortages. So we are saying that the back order is built up with a constant demand, that is given to you, that dB dt by dt is equal to D. It is the constant. So when it is a constant and during the period length t, so and initially we have the zero cost, and maximum allowed back order is B. So from here we can say that the shortest cost will become, as we have proceed in the holding cost, the shortest cost will become the half C2 B, right, half C2 B into D. That is your total shortest cost. So here it is that I have discussed the rate of shortage. Rate of shortage is constant, that is the D. So hence the back order for the period 0 to T will become C2 0 to T dt. So it will be the half B C2 into T. Okay, just it is the T, right? Half C2B into T. Clear? So that is the shortage cost when we have the constant shortage buildup. Thereafter, we have the salvage value, means other type of the cost. So presently we have studied the three main cost: procurement cost, holding cost, and the shortage cost. Now we have the other type of the cost. So here we have the salvage value and the salvage cost. Uh, Assume you have the business of the newspaper, but and you are not able to sell out complete all the newspapers. So what you will do? Anyone please answer? Anyone please answer? If you have some item you are not able to sell, so what you will do? For example, you are doing the business of the vegetable. What you can do? You are not able, in morning you have purchased 10 kg item, sell it to lower price. Yes, you have to sell to garbage means garbage collector peoples, right? जो रद्दी वाला होता है. So रद्दी वाला you have to pay, you have to sell your newspaper, old newspaper, to रद्दी वाला, right? So for example, if you have, I am giving you the different situation. If you have the business of the vegetable, in morning you have purchased the 10 kg apple. By evening you are not able to sell out all the 10 kg. Assume that 1 kg remain. So that 1 kg you can store at your house, and on the next day it will become the initial inventory. Means that will that will add up with the next day purchase. So that kind of situation can be. If you have the business of the newspaper, so if you are not able to sell out the today's newspaper by today, so for the next day it is the garbage. So you have to sell that newspaper, right? You have to sell that newspaper in the kg in lesser amount. And but sometimes sometimes for example, you have the business of the vegetable, let's say banana, and you are not able to sell out your all the purchased amount. So and it that banana, that product get perished. So to means over the next day also you are not able to sell, so that banana get perished. So for that you have to do what? You have to call the sweeper to sweep the space. So you have to pay something, you have to pay something. So here we have the situation for the leftover item. For the leftover item you have to pay something, or you may get something. In newspaper you are getting something from the garbage collector people, but in the banana business you have to pay something, you have to incur the cost to sweep, to clean the space, right? In both situations we have the leftover item, we are managing the leftover item. But in the newspaper you are getting something. If you are getting something, that will termed as a salvage value. Means the value you are getting from the salvage amount, from the leftover item. From the leftover item you are getting some value, you are getting some money, not whatever the actual you want, but you are getting something from the leftover item. That come under with the salvage value, right? And the salvage cost, the cost incurred for cleaning the space due to the perishable item, right? The salvage, for example, you have the business of the कैलेंडर. तो कैलेंडर में क्या होगा? जैसे ही वो महीना गया, वो साल गया, यू हैव टू डिस्ट्रॉय दैट. कुछ ऐसे भी कैलेंडर होते हैं जो कबाड़ी वाले भी नहीं ले जाएंगे. सो इन दैट केस व्हाट यू कैन डू? You have to call some कि इसको झाड़ू मार दो, इसको बाहर फेंक दो. So such type of the cost is the salvage cost. अब जैसे राखी का बिजनेस है, यदि हमने राखी का बिजनेस किया रक्षाबंधन के दौरान, हमने एक बहुत सारे डब्बे मंगा लिए. अब you are not able to sell all the Rakhis on time. So what you can do? You can pack them and wait for the next Raksha Bandhan for the in the next year. For example, you have the cracker business. तो अब cracker business में sometimes for the safety purpose you have to destroy the cracker, or you can store for the next Diwali. So it depend over the item what you are doing. But if you are getting some amount, that is known as the salvage value. If you have to spend some amount, that is the salvage cost. So salvage value is nothing. Salvage value is the negative cost. Is the negative cost, means you are getting something, and salvage cost is positive cost. It is the positive cost, means you have to invest something. So it is estimated that the value of the leftover item at the termination of the inventory period, so that is known as the salvage value. Either the items left over at the end of the period become the initial inventory for the next period. For example, rakhi, for example, crackers, right? All will become the, yeah, Christmas greeting cards and all these things. You can say that it is the initial inventory for the next period. If the policy is to be carried out for only one period, then salvage value represent is the disposable value of the item. Means salvage value is nothing, how you are disposing the leftover item, that come under the salvage value. So salvage value is the negative cost, and salvage cost is the positive cost for the leftover item. The negative of the salvage value is called the salvage cost. So that we will do in next class. Any doubt to understand the, because it is very important to understand all type of the cost. So any doubt in understanding the cost, salvage value and salvage cost? Because it is important to understand. If you have any doubt, you can log out.
Thank you.
Welcome. Ria Sekhabat, any doubt?
No, sir. But sorry, I think there was a little bit of network issue. I couldn't hear clearly. So you said that salvage cost is the cost that we have to incur in order to get rid of extra material that is left.
Yes.
Whereas in the previous slide, I think it was mentioned that salvage value represents the disposal rate of the disposal
Has,
value of the item.
yes.
So
For example, when you are, it is a salvage value. Salvage value and salvage cost both are the different thing. Salvage value, you are getting the value of the leftover item. For example,
right,
न्यूज़पेपर, मतलब नया न्यूज़पेपर 5 रुपए का है, लेकिन रद्दी का न्यूज़पेपर 25 पैसे का है, तो एटलीस्ट 25 पैसा यू आर गेटिंग,
right, sir. I got that part.
राइट. सेल्वेज कॉस्ट व्हेन यू हैव टू bear the 25 पैसा to dispose of this, means at that time there is a loss of the 5 रुपया for the newspaper plus additional 25 पैसा for disposing that leftover item.
Yes, sir. I
So
understood that
here
part.
we have the two different losses.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay.